All right, what's going on, everyone? We're going to be looking at a weekly outlook from the week coming up for September 1st to the 5th, 2025. I'm going to be showing you guys the areas I have marked out on my charts, just kind of some ideas for the week scenarios, just some areas to keep an eye on your charts, have them marked out, stuff like that. We're going to try to go through this pretty quick and not get too boring. So, starting out on NQ, we're going to go through NQ and then we're going to go through ES. And I have a ton of lines on this chart, but just it's not that complicated. Just I have a lot of draws that I have marked out. So, starting from the monthly, we're obviously still in bullish order flow on the monthly. Now the monthly candle is going to close, obviously, so we did sweep out the previous wick right here, and we had a kind of indecisive monthly close, and we still have this monthly bullish fair value gap down here, which is actually becoming more and more relevant to us as price comes down here, especially with the S&T forming at the highs, which I'm going to get into. But we do have this area marked. So for monthly areas to mark on your charts, I obviously have the wick high, which is all-time high. I have the wick low, which is our August low, and then we have the start of the monthly fair value gap. Just I don't want to mark the whole box. I just have it kind of marked like that, just to know when price breaks through it. So monthly still in bullish order flow, but we did have an indecisive candle sweeping out the previous month's wick. Nothing too much there. Order flow is still bullish. We move down to the weekly. Weekly is still in bullish order flow. Remember last week we had this strong wick to the downside. This weekly candle was bearish, but still technically in bullish order flow. We haven't broken structure or anything like that to the downside. For weekly draws, I have marked out this weekly previous week's high right here and the previous week's low right here, and then obviously our monthly low is also a weekly low, but it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. So now we move down to the daily, but first, before we get into that, just know that the weekly is still in bullish order flow until we break structure to the downside. Now we go into the daily, which is where we have a lot more draws and liquidity marked out, and that kind of messes up the charts a little bit. But starting up here, we have this daily high right here, and then we have this daily high right here. So this is just adding a lot of low resistance buy side liquidity on NQ. And then obviously we have our previous week's low. We have this daily low as well. So we have liquidity both ways. But what we have to notice here is that we put in a bearish S&T, and we actually made a lower high so far on the daily chart. So order flow is a little bit weird on NQ because we did inverse this bearish fair value gap to the upside. We broke above it and then we broke right back down through it. So to me, that signs that price wants to go lower, especially with a lower high being put in an SMT at the highs. I do think we're going to get a move down lower before we go higher, but I'm going to run through ES really quick. But the areas I have marked out again for NQ, I have my all-time high. I have these small daily highs right here. I have my previous week's high, previous week's low, and then we have this daily low. I have my monthly low, and then I have the start of the monthly fair value gap right here. So we have all our sell side draws marked, all our buy side draws, and then we have that SMT off the highs. Now we look at ES, kind of the same scenario. Again, starting from the monthly, a little bit different, but we had a stronger monthly bullish close. This candle actually closed above the previous month's wick. Still kind of the same idea, but we're still in bullish order flow. Again, on the monthly, I have marked out my all-time high. I have my August low right here, and then I have the start of this monthly fair value gap right here. Then we go down to the weekly. Weekly still in bullish order flow. Obviously, ES looks a lot cleaner in that. But again, we do have low resistance sell side liquidity being built up into this fair value gap right here. But we'll have to see what happens with that. So on the weekly, I have marked out obviously my previous week's low right here, and then we have this weekly low down here. And then on the daily, which is where we get more of our draws and liquidity, we have obviously this SMT off the highs. So bearish SMT, ES obviously put in a new all-time high. NQ never did, therefore we have a bearish SMT. Then for the other draws and liquidity, we have these three sets of daily lows right here, here, and here. Then we have obviously our August and weekly low, and then we have that monthly fair value gap down there. We also have a bullish S&T off the lows. So NQ actually swept these lows over here, and ES didn't. I'll go back and show you. So we have that lower low right there. If you see, NQ swept those lows, and ES never did. So we actually have a ton of sell side liquidity built up on ES as well. So a couple scenarios here. We'll go over to NQ. Since we have a bearish S&T, we are kind of putting in bearish market structure on the daily. I do think that we potentially get some type of flush of the lows. Now, it depends how far down we go. So obviously our first target for sell side is going to be this previous week's low, because it's literally right here. So what's going to happen? In my opinion, we have this S&T off the highs. We're going to have to see how price reacts after it comes down below this previous week's low, if it does. If we continue to form bearish order flow, I'm going to be looking to take or not to take, but to see if price wants to continue lower, to continue to take out that higher time frame sell side liquidity. And if momentum continues bearish, I do think that we will eventually want to fill that higher time frame for value gap right down here before a continuation to the upside, just because of how much liquidity and sell side liquidity is being built up. I do think that if we get a move below, maybe we break structure to the downside on the daily right here, I think we will see continuations to that flush out that sell side and then continue back up. We could also, that could be one of your scenarios. Again, if we run through this, we break structure to the downside, we're probably going to want to flush through all of this sell side before we continue up. So it would look, let me just redraw this out one more time. So if we break structure, probably flush down, maybe catch some moves down, and then eventually, see that move up, right? That would be one of the scenarios, possibly. Another scenario, we could just have a shallow sell-off, right? We could just have a quick sell-off here, sweep the previous week's low, and then we could just continue back up into, because we still have buy-side liquidity built up. So it really just depends, right? SMT off the highs, liquidity both ways. I think we're due for some type of sell-off, especially with market structure shifting. But again, scenario number one, bearish scenario, we break below previous week's low. If we get a break of market structure here on the daily, I do think we're probably going to want to come down and flush lower and potentially fill in that monthly fair value gap. Maybe we get a small manipulation to the downside, or even below this daily low, or just here, and then we just continue back up into price discovery to the upside. So we need to keep our eye on this SMT, but we have to note we have liquidity both ways, so it's really hard to predict. But I'm watching for a structure shift to the downside over here based off this low, this previous week's low right here. If we continue to break structure, maybe we come down and flush lower, or we get a brief manipulation and then continue back up to run through all this buy side liquidity. Now we'll go over to ES. Same thing again, sell side liquidity built up like crazy. Again, we could potentially see this SMT play out. We get a break of structure to the downside. We run through those lows that NQ took. Remember, NQ took these lows, ES hasn't. Maybe we get a flush to the downside. Maybe we continue lower into that higher time frame fair value gap, and then we get a bounce from there. Or price can just completely disregard that. You never know with what happens with the news and stuff like that. ES just continues to put in higher highs and higher lows, and we see price discovery. We really don't know. I do want to see a sell-off because we're just building sell-side liquidity like crazy, and I do think it's a good idea for price to want to rebalance this gap before we continue back up. So again, we're going to be having to watch for a break of structure or something on the daily. If we start to break structure to the downside, we're going to be looking for all of these lows to get flushed. We're going to have to be patient with that, wait and see how price reacts at this previous week's low especially. But if we continue up, we're just going to go into price discovery most likely. But we have this SMT. We're going to see how it plays out. And, those are my ideas. Keep those areas marked on your charts. Again, key areas to watch going into the week is obviously going to be how this SMT plays out at this previous week's low, or if we just continue up and see what happens from there. So first area and second area right there we'll be watching, because those are the closest areas that are relevant to us. Again, previous week's high, previous week's low, just basically see how price reacts to those areas, and then we'll make our decisions from there. So going over the news now, I'm going to go through how I'm approaching the week. So Monday, no trading day, bank holiday. I won't be on the charts at all, so skip Monday. Tuesday, we have ISM manufacturing PMI at 10. So I will be trading after that news is released. Should be a good day for volatility. Just gonna be trading a little bit later into the session, but after 10 o'clock. Wednesday, we have JOLTS at 10. Same thing again, trading after 10, but should be a normal trading day after that. Thursday, we have ADP non-farm employment change and unemployment at 8:30, and then at 10 we have ISM services PMI. So I will be trading again after ISM services. So all those that 10 a.m. news back to back to back. Normal trading day after that though. And then Friday we have NFP. So I will be trading normally, just probably de-risking just because of it being NFP. But we'll see how that goes. I'm usually down to trade NFP just with a slightly lower risk, but that's going to wrap it up from you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope this helped you guys out. Have your charts marked. Again, if you guys want to join the Discord for free for daily analysis, post-market breakdowns, all that stuff like that, links in the pinned comment. Check that out. That's going to wrap it up for me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.